roll call here. Councilor Ray. Here. Councilor Hutchinson.
Here.
Councilor Myers. Here. Councilor Hutchinson. Here. Councilor Evans.
Here.
Excellent. I don't know where Councilor Williams is. I'm hoping she's just running late. So we'll go ahead and we'll just dive right in and hopefully she can catch up with us. Let's see, we've got the first thing after roll call on the agenda is the sheriff contract review. I believe that is actually in the packet here in front of us. Yep, resolution from last year. That's resolution 2025-20.
So I've got this up on the screen for folks in the room as well as for the benefit of the public and anybody online. What I wanted to do first was take us through the original resolution 2025-20. I'd then like to talk to you a little bit about some of the costs that some of our neighbors are incurring with the Sheriff's Department and get some guidance, I think, also on our discussion about court dissolution that we've been having lately. So that's just in a high-level nutshell. So what this is essentially saying, as you all can see, is obviously we have no police department. The Benton County Sheriff's Office is available to provide those services, and the City of Monroe has in the past and continues to contract for that law enforcement service. Of course, the mayor being authorized to enter into the IGA for the patrol services, and that was beginning on July 1st of 2025. So we are just past 1 year, halfway into this 2-year contract. Exhibit A is also included by reference, which binds the terms of the contract. And this agreement supersedes and replaces any previous agreement. So basically, we saw an increase in fees, which we normally do each time you sign a new contract. This was signed, of course, by our mayor and council president. And the Exhibit A goes a little bit further into detail. This is what spells out, of course, the 2-year period for the contract, identifying the parties involved, which is, of course, the county representing Benton County Sheriff's Office, in the city, of course, representing Monroe, Oregon, and it identifies the ORSs that we have entered into this agreement under. This can be amended or canceled in writing and signed by both parties as described in the termination section. We'll get to that in a second, just so you see all the pieces of this agreement. And it may be renewed again, of course, by written agreement by both parties. The county, its employees and agents are performing services under this agreement as independent contractors and not as officers, employees, or agents of the city. So they work independently for the county. And the city and the county shall perform the necessary services as described throughout this agreement. And the scope, of course, is provided below. In terms of liability, each party, upon request, shall furnish the other with evidence of general liability insurance within the limits. Now, I have not asked for that yet, but I would recommend that we do so. I don't know what the limits are, and I just went through a very detailed insurance review. We have an insurance review every 3 years. That happened today. And so all of our contractors typically should have a coverage of somewhere around $2 million. $1 million would be the minimum, but we have not, to my knowledge, requested that information. That might be something that council would like to direct staff to do. Public contracts, both parties agree to comply with all federal, state, county, and local laws, as well as ordinances and regulations that are applicable to this agreement, and then identifying some of the ORSs that govern that. Both parties shall maintain currently valid workers' compensation insurance, and we obviously know that the county has that insurance. We have that insurance, and we should maintain that throughout the period of the full agreement. Then you have some boilerplate verbiage around non-discrimination, including race, color, ancestry, national origin, religion, sex, marital status, age, and all of the others here listed. Payment for services or payment of services. The county shall submit a billing to the city quarterly, which we do receive and we pay quarterly, beginning with a billing no later than October 5th, 2025. So that was the first one that we received just a couple of months into my tenure, which reflects the prior quarter. And that billing shall be for 1 quarter, 25% of the agreed upon annual $46,548. Termination. If either party fails to perform any of its obligations under this contract within the time and in the manner provided, or otherwise violates any of the terms of the agreement, termination happens in writing. Indemnification. And so we both hold each other harmless, a hold harmless clause in here. Indemnification of both parties. And that's against all claims, demands, damages. Again, this is very much boilerplate verbiage. What I don't know, and I assume, and I think the mayor and the president, Cuthbertson, could help clarify this, but I don't know if this was run through the attorney. I assume it was. Typically, they just approve the document as to form so that it meets all of the legal requirements. But I just wanted to make sure I noted that and asked. Mayor, do you know if we had the attorney review this?
Yeah, this went down in the interim period between our former city administrator and you.
Gotcha.
So I ran everything by the attorney.
Okay. Perfect. So services, the city agrees to provide quarterly payments in the contracted amount as specified above. Again, that was the 46,000. And the city also provides the current substation for county deputies. So we're very unique in that way. I've checked in with all of our other counterparts in the county who use these services. And while the sheriff is trying to get Halsey to be the next one to provide a sheriff station, nobody else does this at the moment. What the county provides. County should provide to the city the services of one or more sworn deputies, herein called deputy, for law enforcement with the city, providing 10.5 hours per week. And the city, of course, maintaining a log of all the hours of service to the city. And you all see that each month in our reports. Deputy shall enforce the municipal codes of the city, and when issuing a citation based on the municipal codes, shall cite into city court. So that would be one of the operative pieces that we would want to revisit as we continue down the road of dissolving our court. Deputies shall have sole authority and discretion to investigate complaints, issue citations, and prioritize duties and responsibilities while providing services to the city. One thing that we've added over this year is Mark is our code enforcement officer. So one piece that we might want to address is the sole authority and discretion component. We may want to add an element that says that Mark could coordinate with our deputy on items that he is simply just issuing as run-of-the-mill code violations. And we've got a couple, one on North 8th and a few other places throughout the city that have come up on my radar throughout this last week in particular. The parties agree that the deputy is an employee of the county. Again, that's a repeat of what we had seen previously. And the county is solely responsible for payment of wages and benefits. One thing to note is that we have really multiple deputies, not a single deputy, but it does say one or more deputies. So that is spelled out here. But as you can see, it's oftentimes several folks, which is, I think, fine, but there's not an individual deputy dedicated to the city. I wanted to make sure, I've had that question before. I wanted to make sure I clarified that. And then there's some more boilerplate language on tort claims. And then the information about who we are, where we're located, and when the document was signed and dated. So I wanted to start here. Are there any questions, comments on anything I've said, discussion from the council on this contract?
I would just like to say that it's my understanding, because we've been going around this for a few years with different entities and whatnot. It's my understanding that they're required to give us a certain amount of hours anyway. This contract was supposed to be extra hours they were giving us, and that's what we're paying for. So we need to make sure that we're getting what we're paying for. And that's why it's really important to have that log and whatnot, because this is above and beyond what they technically should be doing for our city anyway. And that's where we kind of got in this pickle, is in past, that has been an issue. It's been really great through Sheriff Van Arsdale being here. He's done a really great job and everything, but he is going to be leaving. So we need to make sure that we, in the switch, that we're getting, what we're paying for, and we're not just throwing money out that's not, that we're just getting what we would normally get. That makes sense. So just as some facts.
Yeah, that does bring up a point. I think, originally, you only see code enforcement above and beyond what we should get getting from the county anyway, with our traffic. And if we're getting rid of the traffic, then what are they doing? So, there's that fine line. If we're getting into the muddy waters, and we're not doing traffic, or the traffic goes elsewhere anyway. Are they working for the city if the county is getting all the court stuff?
Yeah, I think that it could get real convoluted, since we've been down that road. I thought it was just worth kind of bringing it up and keeping an eye on and deciding what's going to fit us best. And I think too, it's going to be really hard to know till the new people get in and we see what their expectations and what their commitments are going to be for us as well. We do.
See how it pans out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just something we need to be aware of.
But yeah, you're right, documentation.
Well, the new sheriff, elected in November. I won't be starting until January. Anybody else? Okay.
So a couple other notes for council to be aware of. A couple of things I wanted to know was substation. We currently provide the water and electricity, as well as telephone for the substation. And those are costs that weren't identified in the contract themselves. It simply says we provide the substation. I don't know if there's any comments on that from folks.
All I know is that substation has been there since before I even moved into town, over 30 years ago. It may have been at one time the city police or frankly, and I've only seen it used a couple of times.
Okay. You want to ask about that? Anyway.
I have a question on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did we get a separate bill? Is there a way to know exactly how much we pay for the electricity, how much we pay for the water, and how much
Yes.
that phone line costs?
Yes, we can get those numbers very easily. Water's a little more difficult because I'll check with Mark on this, but I believe it's 1 meter for the entire building. But electricity, absolutely, we have those numbers.
Okay, what about the phone? Is it like so much per line?
It is, yeah, and I'll go ahead and clarify all of the costs that we can clarify if that's something the council would like me to do.
I was just wondering if it makes a big difference in the amount to add it to the contract.
Yeah, good point.
They could over the stretch of the year.
I mean, because they're also using that office to do their paperwork, and I don't know that we actually got a response on, are we getting billed for those hours?
Right. And I had asked that question as well, prior to council asking that question, and I didn't get, I kind of held the same response. And so maybe a clarification would be helpful.
Yeah, because they're kind of beating around the bush, it seems like.
Well, I want to take a few minutes, and if there are any other, by the way, any other discussion from council before I move on to another city that's in your packet there, where you see that there's the same service provided.
No, I don't think so. They've already been, check out this other city yet. There.
So what we have is, you see number 2 right here. So under contracted services, this is just for Adair Village, who has almost twice, I believe twice the population of the city of Monroe. Materials and services, contracted services, this number 2 right here denotes the 50,948, and that's for 10 hours per week of directed patrol. So I'm not sure exactly what directed patrol means, but that was something that stood out to me, as I'd like to define and better understand what's happening with the patrol in Adair Village. Is that the same thing that's happening in the city of Monroe? Is it one deputy? And one of the things to note is that's without a substation. So there are no costs included or benefits included for them there. That is really only about a $4,000 per year difference from what the city of Monroe is currently paying. Just popping back up here to our costs, we're at 46,000. So actually, it's about 3,500 difference. A little bit less. But there's no substation at Adair Village, and I wasn't sure if that was something that we want to look at all, or clarify with the county. I do believe that substation has always been there. That's what Mark had described to me. I finally got an opportunity to tour that substation a couple months ago, and I actually found that they even have a spot to hold people who are in temporary incarceration in there. I wasn't aware of that, and a nice little operation going in there, which is great. But I was curious what it looked like.
I've been in there once. I think it's worth taking a look at the expenses of the substation. Could be a good negotiating point.
Yeah, it's payment we're providing, even if they don't think of it that way.
It's a benefit, and maybe we should, we'll take a look at that.
And Adair, I can see where they might not have a substation there because they're a little bit closer.
Yeah. A little closer to the well.
Yeah.
And so Adair has about twice the population, and you would expect that they likely have more activity there. I wasn't sure how we calculated what the rate would be between a city like Monroe or Adair. But the big thing here, I think, the reason we want to revisit this anyway, is that the court fees are one of the items that we've always accounted for as a return to the city for having these services. With the court no longer in operation in about 6 months from now, we do want to talk with the county and get their thoughts on, I think, what that means before asking for a renegotiation. We might just say, hey, the court's going away. Do you think this warrants a discussion?
The one thing about the difference between Adair and us also is Adair is almost 100% a bedroom community. There's no industry there at all.
I'd be curious what their monthly reports from the sheriff's department looks like versus ours. Especially for basically the same hours.
Right. Yeah.
I can get that information really easily. We work pretty closely. I have worked pretty closely with Adair through a number of the meetings we have on a monthly basis. I see Counselor Evans has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Councilor.
Is there a way to find out if their cost has anything to do with the population?
It typically does. In my research that I did when I presented to you about the courts and which small cities have police departments, typically what you're seeing is contracted costs are directly proportional to the population because it says something about the amount of work and time and risk, essentially, that city would have and have a need for those services. But I don't see anything in here about how we calculated that. Again, that's something I could ask the county. How did we arrive at that? Just to educate me.
Because you were saying that we are, what, about $4,000 less than Adair Village?
$3,500, but Adair does not provide a substation and they're twice the population.
Right. Very curious. Yeah,
I would like to know the number of call lines.
yeah. And I think we need to do a little more digging and research here.
Because they are on 99 just like we are.
And so they're about 1,200 people total. So they're actually about 400 or so more than the city of Monroe.
I think there is some aspect to having the substation here still.
Mhm.
When they have spent some time in the substation, they put it on their hourly log. But having a cop car outside the town hall is kind of nice in its own way, even though it seems like most of their hours is deep at night. So.
Councilor Felty, I'm really glad you brought that up because I want to return to this piece that I'd like to ask the county and Adair Village about. They've identified 10 hours per week specifically for directed patrol, right? And so that implies to me that those 10 hours are exclusively for the patrol element of that contract. But I do believe that we're seeing non-patrol tasks billed for the city of Monroe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we just say hours, we're not, we need to clean it up for
Yeah, you do.
I think it would be
Exactly.
more detailed reports. They certainly are. The other bullet that you have there, the number 1, this represents 5% of the city admin's time. I presume that's Adair's city admin, or is that you?
Oh, that is just for, that's a different number. That's for their staffing up here.
Right. So is that their, or excuse me,
Is it Adair?
Adair Village's city admin being paid with this, or how does that function as part of this?
You know how we split up my time and Dawn's time throughout different pieces of the budget through personnel and materials. That's all they were doing there. That's unrelated to the sheriff's contract.
Okay.
Yeah, so what they're doing is finding out how much they're spending of their services. And 5% of that is. I have a quick question also. What is the total scope of this City of Adair Village coverage? Because you can go clear down to Lewiston, or you can go out past Coffin Butte, the refuge. There's a lot of houses out there. Do they have to cover all that? It'd be nice to know if it's just specifically inside the city limits, or is it incorporated even?
Yes, it is.
It is now? Okay. When I got married there in '83, I don't think it was.
It's a good point, Councilor Myers. I believe that's who I heard just there.
Yes.
Yes, we understand it to be within city limits, but I don't see that clearly spelled out in our contract, even though it's understood to be the case. One thing I'd like to do, if council so directs me to, is to get a copy of the contract by request from Adair Village and read that over a little bit before approaching the county with any of my clarifying questions that we might have.
The more information we have to prepare, I think, is better. So that's a good idea.
More information, more prepared, more informed. Yes. I agree.
I mean, we could be blowing smoke depending on what they're really doing out there.
How much does the phone actually get used there?
Everybody has a cell phone. We don't know.
No idea. I guess we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I guess, are we paying for their internet in there?
Yes, we're paying for internet, we're paying for phone, we're paying for electricity, we're paying for water, we're also paying for the space itself to exist rather than that being a fee for service or included in the contract other than just in a quick line that it's available for them.
I presume water and sewer too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of cost there. Definitely. Well, that's the course going to.
Yeah, there's no repeat.
Yeah.
Well, there hasn't been a recouping.
And then that was something. Okay.
So I want to recap briefly and make sure I understand what council's concerns are for my next steps. So first, what I heard Councilor Cuthbertson, you're curious about the difference between the hours that should already be required. We want to clarify that and make sure our understanding is correct. And if it's not, we'd like that to be clarified. That should be happening anyway. What is that number of hours? Secondly, these are to be in addition to that. If that is true, then we'll want to be sure that we clarify in any updated contract that is sussed out. Second, traffic versus non-traffic. Councilor Myers, you mentioned that. And again, if the court dissolves, that touches directly on the revenue that we receive as part of this contract. That piece already has to be amended anyway, based on the council's decision on the court. The substation expenses, that seems to be where we spent a good amount of time here this evening. What are those expenses? I will quantify those for council. That includes water, electricity, internet, phone. And then I'll also get a copy of the #1 monthly reports from Adair Village, as well as a copy of their contract, so I can sit down and look at it side by side and better understand how the scope of coverage differs, if at all. Did I cover all of that? Is there anything I missed? Councilor Evans, I see your hand up.
Can you also clarify if we get charged for everything they do while they're in the substation?
Right, yes. So the patrol hours versus actual hours total. Because currently we just say hours. So thank you for touching back on that. Yes.
Because they say they're working on reports, but we don't know what reports. I mean, it could be from anywhere in the county. They just happen to be sitting in the substation working on it.
Yeah, and that's something that we can clarify once we get all the information I think that y'all are asking for sure.
They could be doing
Thank
their reports.
Also, and you might have said it, James, but just define directed patrol. I know what that is.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'll get a copy of the contract, and if it's not clear, that's one thing I can just reach out to the city manager, city admin in Adair and say, hey, what do you understand this to be? And I wanted to return one thing y'all pointed out, and you're right, they are allocating time from staff to, and I don't know what they would be doing other than administering the contract and essentially doing what I'm doing, which is looking over the report and talking with you about things like this. I can check on that. What does that mean? Are you actually spending time, or is this really an accounting effort?
Maybe the city admin really is directing them, sheriff.
Well, I have another quick little point to ask about.
Yeah.
This 50,948, which is amount would cover a contract. Does that mean that whole amount is contract with the sheriff's office? It could be other contract services in there also, the way it's written.
No, because it has a #2 and it says #2 is directly covered by the Benton County Sheriff's Office and the #2 at the bottom. I can clarify that and the contract will tell that very quickly. But my understanding based on what we're seeing here is that is for public safety, which is the fund category, and $50,948 for Benton County 10 hours a week directed patrol.
Okay, 'cause it said would cover. Cover doesn't mean it's the total, is the way I was reading it. So, yeah, it'd be nice to.
I'm reading it as a proposed budget anyways.
Right.
Say adopt.
Well, that's true. But I just want to see if there's any hidden stuff inside there,
Right.
just so we know what we're talking about when we do talk to them.
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
figure it out for it. We'll know for sure.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's a budgeting thing, but the next line down, marked insurance, they went from $50 adopted 24-25 to $6,300.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's a huge
Allocating that to safety. I don't know if that would entail, but
You'll see in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually. I hadn't really put much thought into that until you mentioned it, but yeah, that's something we could ask about as well. One thing to note, and I'll again, this will show itself in the contract immediately, but our contract states that the city administrator and our staff have absolutely zero control over what they do. They are self-directed. I suspect the verbiage in Adair Village's contract would say the same thing. And if that is the case, I'd be even more interested about what this administrative cost is. Okay. So
Alright.
I will get this information and bring it to our work session next month. I should be able to pull all this together in 30 days.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, well, we've kind of already talked a little bit about it, but is the municipal court dissolution.
So I wanted to just make sure I return to this and let you all know that I am beginning the process of identifying all of the things that need to happen. And I'm going to align those into a timeline as well as a very clear checklist of step by step what needs to happen to properly dissolve a court in the state of Oregon under the law. And that includes the things that the law might not require but are really good to do, which is to, number one, coordinate with our partners at the county and fit in the revision of our contract as a piece of that. I hope to have that to you. My plan would be in 2 months from now. So in 1 month from now, you'd have all the information that you'd need to really understand the questions that we asked tonight. And then 2 months from now, we would have the discussion about how that fits in to the court dissolution process. I wanted to bring this up so council had an opportunity to add to that or maybe redirect me in any way.
That's a good timeline.
So we're shooting for the end of the calendar year, is that correct?
Yes, so the completion time should be the end of the calendar year. Yes, sir.
I feel like we discussed this topic at length during budget season.
We did.
I have no further commentary.
So we know essentially the last day will be December 31st.
Correct. And so the goal is to create a backwards plan
Mhm.
beginning from the date at which we end the court and backing up to where we are right now. And the first processes would be, of course, getting your answers and then talking more about what the dissolution of court means and how those two steps, the public safety and the court, work together.
Right. Sounds good to me. Agreed. Yeah. Okay.
Does that work for folks? Is there anything that you'd like me to do in addition between now and next month from other information? Okay.
I honestly can't be anything.
You can probably watch all the recordings from the last 2 months.
No, I think we're in a good place.
Okay, great.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next item on the agenda, discuss staffing, positions, titles.
Thank you.
Talk
So
about-
the
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. The personnel committee will be reviewing updated position that we now created for the admin assistant too. And then also reviewing moving our public works assistant, so Jake, up to 1.0 FTE from 0.8 FTE. We want to make sure that positions and titles still align with what you would expect, and I don't expect to see any changes. We did not discuss that during the budget process, but one thing that I think Don and Mark were asking about is, are there going to be any changes? I don't believe so, but I wanted to raise it here this evening to make sure you knew that that was a question from staff. And that includes titles or activities, other than the fact to note that there is more in-field work for staff under Mark because he's spending just a little more of his time in the office, though I do believe we have that very well covered the way that we're working now.
No, I mean, we've talked about the titles, like we've got that all squared away now. And I don't really, beyond what they're normally doing, I don't see any changes. Just they're doing a great job and keep doing it.
Okay, so Personnel Committee will review those updates, and if there's anything to write home about, we can bring that back to council as a recommendation from the Personnel Committee when they get into a little more of the detail about, in particular, the new Administrative 2 position and how that gets baked into our pay scale, as well as into an official position description for the city.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else on that, TJ?
No, sir, that was it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next item on the agenda, library landscaping services contract.
Excellent. So we have continued informally to provide some services, but we haven't done anything in addition as the council had directed. I'm curious if you wanted to have Roger come and join us. Please remind me where you all landed on this particular issue. We've touched on it in a few different discussions.
I'm trying to remember, I think we discussed continuing it through the summer, I think.
Yeah, continue through the summer and then start talking about
And maybe
writing a
Roger,
contract
yeah,
for us to provide those services.
we can have Roger come back at that point.
Yeah. I think part of the reason was targeting with one, all that kind of stuff. Busy tourist season.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of pluses for the city to keep going. And we're already mowing the property north of it with ourselves.
Correct.
I think the specifics of what tasks are actually going to be done.
Right.
Yeah, we get to
I
handle that out.
agree, and
Yes.
also liability, because if we're over there doing it and say it's dry and a fire starts or whatever, we want to make sure that we're covered and we're okay.
Yeah, we want them to pay for our tractor. I think
So at minimum, I would recommend a holds harmless agreement for this summer period. I know we're doing it as a courtesy and also as a way to understand what that means in terms of time and effort for our team. But the piece, especially going through the insurance process today, the renewal, we probably do want a holds harmless agreement that states for the liability piece that there are no issues if the city gets injured on their property, and vice versa. If we damage anything accidentally while on the mower, which is the more likely scenario, that they won't sue the city for providing that service over the summer. That's one piece I want to strongly recommend. We didn't really push into that level of detail during the budget process, but I wanted to raise that tonight. And then secondly, I'd like to ask about whether we want to continue those services after the summer is over and make this more of a permanent offer, or do we want to end it at the end of the summer and say you're on your own?
Well, I think it depends on Roger and the library folks. If they've got somebody else in mind to do it, I think we need to get Roger in here.
right now we're filling in because their guy that they selected.
Yeah, correct.
Well, and we also need to know from our guys, if it ends up being too much of a burden, with the other responsibilities they have for the city, because those really technically need to come first before we're contracting our guys out to do landscaping for everybody else in the city.
And aren't they have to use a push mower and a weed eater there, don't they? Or-
Right.
Yes.
So that's even more risk.
I seem to recall, second to last budget committee, it came up that maybe they weren't gonna keep it on, they were gonna switch to something else.
Yeah,
I think there's
that's-
just too many questions.
Yeah, that's why we need to get Roger in here. So I don't know, maybe we can get Roger in here for the August council meeting perhaps. Go ahead, Councilor Evans.
You guys are hard to understand. Your mics are cutting in and out, and there's a lot of static. But so I'm not certain exactly what you were saying, but it was my understanding we were going to do a short-term contract to have them sign so that we're getting paid now through the summer.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So what I will do is I will bring that to council at the end of the month. I have also notified the attorney that they will probably have her review a contract. The holds harmless element, I'd really like to make sure that council is on board with me including that, in addition to the fee for services based on the hours that we've identified through our first couple of mows, since we now know what that takes.
I would think the whole harmless would be,
And that's an automatic thing.
that's either no go without it.
I agree. It needs to get over to Roger and then you decide it immediately. Or,
I will take care of that.
okay, thank you, I appreciate it. Well, of course.
So, TJ, were you gonna say something about the rate or price?
So the fee for service, what I will do is I will talk with Roger about the rates that we've pulled. So we did a couple of quotes for what a typical cost would be for our size of that library. And we would like to present that to him and just give him the middle of the road cost of what that is. And that encompasses material, time, everything. It prevents us from having to split hairs with here's how much we pay Mark or here's how much we pay our other guys. And it just pegs it to the market rate, which is what I believe we agreed on.
Yeah, market rate, you're meaning like what a private contractor would charge.
Yes, so we don't want to grab the highest rate and we don't want to grab the lowest, which is why I wanted to grab a few of them and find that middle of the road cost and then present that to Roger for his review.
Yeah, because we have to be real careful that we're not competing with local
Contractors, yeah.
I mean, we have to compete fairly, I should say.
Well, we are providing a service and they have an option to choose us or choose another contractor. And they have expressed to us that the contractor or contractors that they've worked with have either been not reliable or not providing the service that they'd like. So we are essentially on a par with what a market service would be. And you do see this happening between governments regularly. They don't typically reduce costs simply because they're a government.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I've seen it where that's happened before, so I'll just cover our base.
Got it.
Just also, like that middle ground, TJ, does that meet or exceed our fee for when we mow someone else's lawn here in the city?
That's a little bit different because if we have to mow somebody else's lawn, we're going to charge them a pretty high fee according to the code to discourage that from happening regularly.
Isn't that
So
more
we don't really do it as an hourly type of market fee for the citizens who aren't mowing their lawn, for example, and we got to go do it.
That's more of a punitive citation type of fee.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as a recap, this contract with the holds harmless and the rate, I'll bring that to our attorney immediately for review and then present it to Roger. I believe I should be able to have that for council to review at least by the next actual council meeting at the end of the month to move this ahead. And then I'd like to be able to, I think on your direction, I think I heard that you'd like to have Roger at our August work session to talk more about whether he feels that service would continue for a longer period of time and council's questions on that. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, we're ready to move on? Okay. Next up on the agenda is U 24004 grant review.
All right. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you all saw a couple of things on this. First off, in June, through Business Oregon, we were required to extend this grant for 1 year. What this grant does is basically the Long Tom Watershed Council was doing some work in Eugene at 2 commercial locations. That work is preventing pollutants from making their way to the Monroe watershed. Therefore, we are administering a grant for work the Long Tom Watershed Council is doing upstream. And this is a $50,000 grant. It was supposed to end in October of 2025, and it was requested and approved by Business Oregon to extend that to October 2026. This was largely because there was no administrative element for that long period of time when Steve was not here and we were looking for another city administrator, but also because Long Tom Watershed Council did get busy on some other tasks and I think fell behind just a little bit on their schedule. So we did with the mayor, we went through this process of extending the contract. And this includes a legal review, financial review, and the other documents that are provided. This is through Carolyn Craig, and we also have a direct administrator that I've been working with as well. I'm listed on this. Heather Stevens is listed on this. She's the one who runs that process, the one I was just referencing. Now, one of the things we did not do is we did not extend the letter of agreement that existed. So that was where we had a formal contract between us and the Long Tom Watershed Council. The one you're looking at here on my screen, this first page beginning Dear Mayor Sheets, that was a contract between the city and the state. What we need to do is bring our contract with Long Tom Watershed Council to meet that October 2nd deadline of 2026. Currently, we're out of contract with Long Tom Watershed Council until we complete this process. I've had this reviewed by Business Oregon, and they had no concerns or revisions that they wanted to include. What I've done, and I'll just read through this briefly so you understand the goal here, rather than reinvent an entire new agreement, I have simply made this our first amendment to the agreement so that we can lightly adjust it in just the ways that the state would like to see. So this first amendment to the letter of agreement for this project is entered into by the City of Monroe and the Long Tom Watershed Council. They have also received a copy of this and have stated that they have no concerns with it at this time. The recitals are simply that the parties entered into this letter of agreement for implementation of the OHA project, which we call the agreement. Business Oregon has approved an extension, that's the document you just saw above this, for this project through October 2nd, 2026. Oregon Health Authority has directed that updated drinking water source protection contract clauses be incorporated into the agreement. So for the term extension, the agreement is amended to extend the term through October 2nd, 2026, unless terminated earlier. Ratification, the parties acknowledge and ratify all work performed under the agreement and affirm that, except as modified herein, the agreement remains in full force and effect. That means we're changing nothing else except for what we're stating on paper here. Everything else in the agreement is exactly the same. Federal contract clauses. The following provisions are incorporated into and made part of this agreement. These are all things that while we're making this amendment, Business Oregon has asked that we include. These are boilerplate items that are now required for all grants, but were not required at the time that we originally signed the agreement with Business Oregon. So they've asked that we include these now. That includes source of funds. Federal work under this contract is funded by the Source Water Protection Fund through Business Oregon. Long Tom Watershed Council needs to include in all of their deliverables at the bottom of each thing that they produce that it was funded by this grant. That's what that second clause says under A. Whistleblower verbiage, so specifically referencing the Code of Federal Regulations, which all money, this is coming from federal money as pass through. So we must include whistleblower verbiage in any grant, even if you receive $1. Non-discrimination. This is very similar to the Code of Federal Regulations requirements for, again, any required grant that you get, whether it's through EPA assistance or anything else. And this is specifically the verbiage, by the way, that the state has given us to enter into this contract. So we didn't create this. This is all given by the state in a set of contract clauses. Termination for cause and for convenience, breach of contract. A contractor shall address termination for cause and for convenience, including the manner by which it will be affected and the basis for settlement. Really, again, this is boilerplate verbiage saying that we can terminate. Intellectual property. Contractor hereby grants that the US EPA a royalty-free, non-exclusive, and irrevocable license to reproduce, publish, and otherwise use any of the materials that came out of this work. Again, these are largely, actually exclusively projects outside of the boundaries of the city of Monroe. So there wouldn't really be any concerns for the city itself regarding anything that we've created, and we're a public entity anyway. Disadvantaged business enterprises that they're going to work with women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and so forth. And that we may not discriminate on the base of race, color, or national origin or sex. And then inspections and information. It allows us to, and the subcontractors, any party designated to examine, inspect, and make copies of any deliverable or any information within this document, within this contract, and that the contractor retains all those records. Suspension and debarment, all this is provided again as boilerplate language under the executive order that operates this. Equal opportunity and remainder of the agreement. This is the piece I wanted to highlight again that I mentioned earlier. Except as expressly amended herein, all provisions of the agreement remain unchanged and in full force and effect. So what I did again is I created a letter of agreement and an amendment to that letter of agreement that allows us to simply just change the minor items, which is the due date and the contract clauses. That is all that has been added to the original agreement. Otherwise, it's all the same. And then, of course, we have some signature blocks that are ready for Long Tom Watershed Council to sign following its execution by the City Council, ideally at the end of this month.
Any questions?
Is this money going into a fund, or is it gonna actually go into something that the water will go into Fern Ridge and then travel on down this way? Or is it going?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it was $50,000, half of which has already been spent on some of the projects in Eugene that have been implemented. Most of the work has been done, so ideally we're already benefiting from those projects in some very small way. Again, it's 50,000 and it's a long distance away. The other 26,000 will go into a final report and the final contract deliverables. I'll also mention that this grant does require us to identify a potential project that could be implemented in the future on a public school within the city of Monroe. And I've been working with the superintendent of the school district to identify at a very high level something that Long Tom Watershed Council could do as the contractor for a couple of thousands of dollars worth of value to be able to meet the requirements of the grant. So we're not looking to knock it out of the park. We're not looking to implement a project. We're looking to meet the requirements of the grant to have at least some scope of a project on a school identified in this report that gets produced. So that's what the other 26,000 will do.
And all the work that was done before in Eugene, that's all in the Long Tom watershed, not anything going elsewhere, right?
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, I actually also did a project next to the South Eugene High School And that was to, remedy some of the parking lot stuff that was going into that Amazon waterway. All of that comes right here to the Monroe watershed. So, and Eugene's, of course, a kind of a city that produces a lot of pollutants. So any way that we can reduce the pollutants that come here, theoretically, ostensibly, are going to benefit the city.
Okay. Sounds good.
Excellent. So again, this is a contract I inherited to administer, and I am looking to meet just the requirements of it. I'm not looking to do any major extra credit here, but we want to make sure that nothing gets left behind, because completing this properly means that we're eligible for more funding, bigger funding later on for our larger projects.
Okay, very good. Okay, you ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
Next on the agenda, 11:35 committee updates and membership expansion.
Wonderful, thank you. So we had a very successful coordination email between all of the members from many different places: Planning Commission, City Council, Longtom Watershed Council. Roger Irvin, as a civil engineer, is sitting on that. The council member, as you all know, is Councilor Williams, who has a microbiology background. There are also a couple of folks from the Army Corps of Engineers and American Rivers, which is a nonprofit organization that specializes in removing dams. So we have about a 7-person committee, as well as a number of folks that will be technical experts to come in and look at things like the request for proposal for the engineer we hire, for example. We have selected the third, I believe it's Thursday of the month. I'm going to pull this up to just clarify, but all of this will appear now as a publicly noticed meeting on the city's website moving forward, like any other committee that we have. And it's also going to be held at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Let me try to find this on my calendar. It's difficult to talk at the same time. Oh, Mayor Sheets, help me. When did we say this? I'm going to go to my actual email instead of the calendar.
Okay, hold on. Look at my calendar.
Okay.
Actually, it's actually Monday, July 20th.
Third Monday, thank you. 4 to 5 p.m. I just went to the email here. So the first meeting, as Mayor Sheets just said, thank you, sir, would be July 20th coming up. And the first thing that we're going to do is identify the scope for this project. We do have a pretty tight timeline because we have a water intake that needs to happen at the same time as we're doing our water system upgrades. And all that needs to align with the in-water work schedule that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is currently sussing out, and they should have that to us in the very near future. You will receive updates from this committee in writing on a monthly basis. That will give council an opportunity to hear what the subject matter experts have to say and give you an opportunity to comment or redirect, especially on some of the more complex elements of this project. I was very adamant about having a technical advisory committee, and that's what this is, a TAC, operate and really oversee this entire project. So it's not just staff, it's not just the council, and it's not just the Corps. It is a coordinated group of individuals, which also, most importantly, includes our water regulator, who must approve every single element of the water that gets changed, the water system that gets changed as a result of this project. And it all needs to happen in a 12-month period of time. That is somewhat tight, and we're very grateful that this is actually, in the scheme of things, a small project. We have alignment from all of the partners, but again, if there are any issues that the council would like to comment on, you will have that opportunity throughout the year. That includes water rights and property owner relations, some of which we're dealing with really in the weeds right now, in particular with one particular property owner, but there are others as well. because that impoundment height, so the height of the water, is going to drop. And that doesn't just affect our intake, that affects other people too. So I'm working with our attorney as well as with all of the technical experts to make sure that we answer all of those questions properly and appropriately. Are there any questions or thoughts from the council or directions for me as I enter into this first meeting coming up in just a week from now?
How about fire suppression?
The fire chief will be a part of those meetings when we talk about the wells, the wet wells, and that also will be going through our development review committee separately. So we'll have our own engineer speaking with the fire chief specifically about what we install and how we install it, based on those long-going questions that we've had now. Do we have enough water in the tanks currently? The answer is, I think, no, according to a lot of experts in the field. But yes, thank you, Tim. That will be something that the district is very closely working with us on and will comment on in writing.
Any other questions? Comments? So our first meeting is on Monday. And it's essentially, it's a Teams meeting, isn't it, PJ?
Yeah, we got folks joining from Portland and lots of different places. So and they're mostly working professionals during their day who want to check out at 5. And so, yes, this is mostly a Teams meeting. There will be an in-person option, I suspect, because Mark will be joining these at times, and so will Chuck. So we'll probably open up the Monroe Community Center, especially if there's an interest from the public to join in person or other counselors.
Okay, understood. All right. Anything else? Okay, TJ, do you have anything else before we move on to the end of the meeting here?
No, sir. I think that covered everything. Thank you.
Okay. We're down to councilor comments. Councilors have any comments? The only comment I have is we have Christmas in July on Saturday. Christmas store. If you're around, might want to check it out.
Sounds like TJ's looking at that North 8th Street property.
Good.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the nuisance property?
Barry Roberts' old place, or, I don't know, some lady died years ago and it's still in her name.
Yeah.
You know,
That
So
That one.
there's a welfare component that we've been addressing over the last several months with senior disabled services, senior and disability services, as well as with the county. There's also the code enforcement component that we are working on, and ideally that grass is problematic at times too. We have sent letters to that individual, but she is sick and elderly, and what we're trying to do is be a good neighbor and work with her alongside senior and disability services.
Hey, TJ, I thought of something.
Yeah.
Going back to counselor comments. Last month, we had a lot of email issues. I don't think I've heard an update on that. Counselor Evans and myself were having a lot of issues logging in. I don't think I've ever logged in.
And then Councilor Cuthbertson too.
Yeah, I still can't use mine, and so I missed COG again, or CWAC and all that. Somebody called me, but he didn't have an answer.
I still
So-
can't use mine. I've never heard from anybody.
So I escalated this to our contract service provider, which you all know we signed on almost a year ago. I can't be IT in addition to everything else, and so we brought in IT. Unfortunately, I am remiss to say that they have not been as responsive as we'd like. I did ask Dawn and staff to submit yet another what they call ticket to address those issues. I honestly don't know how we rank in their priority list, but I need to get directly with the executive director, Ryan, who came to council and really pitched the services. One thing that you'll note is that I did through the budget process, we increased the cost of IT services, I have directed staff to identify private sector IT services that are available. Because at the present moment, I am very inclined to move to another service who could provide us timely and better quality responses. Unless there's something that I'm missing, if Ryan at the executive director level with the COG can tell me, oh no, this is the issue. That is what I'm doing right now.
Thank you.
Thoughts or comments on that? I'm glad you brought that up, Councillor Felty. And I am sorry that I haven't personally been able to address it, but we have continuously asked about it.
Yeah, Councilor Shelby's email still shows as city councilor one.
You're number one.
So your alias never got changed then. So what we have for our planning commissioners and our city councilors is reoccurring emails, so we don't have to continuously pay for new accounts or have lots of different accounts, and for institutional knowledge. But what we do is we have an alias. So basically, it would be, Thomas.Fiorelli, but really it's city administrator as the primary. So clearly that wasn't done properly. Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever logged in. I mean, it hasn't been very long, but still.
This is Councilor Myers, how I found out. I sent him an email, came back and said that.
And mine is just a password issue, and so I don't know who has my password, can give me my password so that I can log on.
Mine is the same. Mine's just a password.
Shouldn't there be a reset?
There is a reset option, but the thing is that there's so many different issues, and we've submitted tickets for each of these, and I really haven't gotten a response on those. So I am going to escalate this to the executive director level. I have already quoted out, like I said, pricing from services that are within a half an hour from us, who can service the city, and I am prepared to bring to you a proposal to go with a different contractor if we don't get the answers we're looking for.
I guess just to confirm, the current contractor is not also like the website IT, or is there anything?
No.
That's good. Super, good.
I'm all for changing if we have to.
Yeah, the website is a service that's nationwide, and they service most of our partner cities as well. We're happy with them.
So it's the COG that we're getting our IT services from.
Yes, I brought them before you, if you recall, in like August of last year, and Ryan came and he said, hey, we can do IT services. We're awesome. Bring us on. Having worked for Lane Council of Governments years ago myself, I was inclined to work with the COG, and I think that that's a good thing. I also think they're bogged down. They started a CSC, or the Community Services Consortium, so they have a second charge now under the county to deal with homelessness and other issues, and their IT department is also working on that. They did express that to me last time I did talk with them directly, when they said, oh yeah, sorry, we're a little bit slow right now. That's part of the reason. It helped explain, but it wasn't necessarily the kind of response that we would want to continuously accept as a client.
So this is like I'm just gonna say it, this is like a reoccurring issue. Every time we have something, we have a service with the COG, we have to hit the panic button and get the executive director. This is getting kind of old. So I'm personally just inclined for email issues that we have with council members. And I don't know, we can give Ryan another shot, but I'm
I'm prepared to bring alternatives to council. If you would like me to do that at the next work session, it's already ready to go.
okay. That's
I'm okay
okay.
with that, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but in that, with that,
Yes.
my own comment is, as I was saying before, my concern is, we pay for COG, what are we paying for? Okay,
Yeah.
that's all.
It's a good
Well
point.
noted. I apologize, council. And I know planning commission has probably, I know a few folks on planning commission have the same issue. I will address it.
Okay, let me know if I need to talk to Ryan.
I may pull you into this, Mayor. I think that may be appropriate depending on a couple of things. So thank you.
Understood. Okay, anything else? Okay, call it. I'm gonna call. We're adjourned. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.